Ethan Cole had always loved flying. The hum of engines, the endless darkness of space, and the quiet moments where he could think made him feel alive. Today, however, was different. His small cargo ship, the Starling, floated near the Andromeda border, carrying a load of supplies to a research station on the edge of human-explored space. Nothing unusual had happened on this route for years, and Ethan expected it to be another routine trip. But space had a way of reminding humans how small they really were. Without warning, a bright beam of light shot from the darkness ahead. It wrapped around the Starling, lifting it off its course. Ethan's stomach sank. He fought the controls, but the ship felt as if it was being carried by a giant, invisible hand. The console flashed red, alarms blared, and the AI's calm voice sounded unusually tense. Warning. Unknown tractor beam detected. Manual override unsuccessful, the AI said. Ethan cursed under his breath. He tried every maneuver he knew, twisting, turning, even cutting the main engines, but it was no use. The Starling was trapped. He gritted his teeth and hoped whoever or whatever was behind this wasn't hostile. Minutes later, the ship stopped moving. The lights dimmed and the alarms fell silent. Ethan exhaled only to feel a new kind of unease. He wasn't alone. A door hissed open on a nearby wall of the strange ship. Out stepped a figure that seemed unreal. Ethan froze. She was tall, graceful, and her skin shimmered with a soft golden hue. Her eyes were large and green, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her hair fell in long, flowing waves, almost as if it had a life of its own. She wore a uniform that gleamed like liquid metal. Everything about her screamed elegance, authority, and mystery. "I am Princess Lyra of Zyphera," she said, her voice melodic yet firm. "Who are you, human, and why are you aboard my ship?" Ethan swallowed hard, unsure what to say. I'm Ethan Cole, a pilot from Earth. I didn't mean to." "Silence," she interrupted gently but firmly. "You are here. That is enough for now. The ship has detected you as a foreign presence. You will remain in the containment area until I understand your intentions." Ethan blinked. Containment? Trapped? He had been pulled into some alien ship, and now a princess was standing in front of him, judging him with piercing eyes. He realized he had no choice but to comply. The next hours were a blur. Ethan sat in a small, softly lit room, the walls glowing with alien symbols that shifted and moved in patterns he couldn't comprehend. Princess Lyra observed him from behind a transparent screen, her expression unreadable. He tried to communicate, but every attempt seemed to confuse her more than reassure her. Eventually, curiosity got the better of her. She entered the room again, walking with a grace that made Ethan's heart skip. "You are resourceful," she said, her tone less formal now. "You adapted quickly when your ship was captured. That is rare among humans." Ethan shrugged, trying to hide his nervousness. "I just do what I can to survive." Lyra studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Survival, yes. Perhaps that is why you are still alive." The hours turned into a strange kind of routine. Ethan explored the room, examining the walls and panels. He discovered that some symbols responded to touch, glowing brighter when pressed. He tried to figure out their purpose, experimenting cautiously. Lyra watched silently at first, but then her curiosity got the better of her. "You are different from other captives," she admitted. "You attempt understanding instead of panicking. That may work to your advantage," Ethan smiled faintly. "Or it may just get me in more trouble." Lyra allowed herself a small laugh. It was brief, but for Ethan it felt like sunlight breaking through the cold metal of the ship. He realized that, despite the danger, there was something strangely comforting about her presence. As the night, or what passed for night aboard the alien ship, fell, the situation grew more complicated. The AI, which had been silent for most of the evening, suddenly spoke. "Princess Lyra, warning. External cosmic storm detected. Ship integrity may be compromised." Lyra's expression hardened. "A storm here? That could be dangerous. Human, I need your assistance," Ethan blinked. "My assistance? I'm just a pilot. I don't know how your ship works." "Your intuition may help," she said. "Humans are unpredictable. Sometimes that is useful." Despite the tension, Ethan felt a spark of excitement. He had always thrived under pressure. Together, they moved through the corridors, the walls glowing softly as if guiding them. Ethan noticed the ship was alive in a way he had never experienced before. The technology seemed to respond to their presence, anticipating their actions. As they reached the control deck, the storm outside raged, cosmic winds buffeting the ship in ways that defied normal physics. Lyra's fingers flew over the holographic panels. issuing commands and stabilizing systems. Ethan watched carefully, trying to understand the logic behind her gestures. "You see," Lyra said, noticing his interest, "our technology responds not only to commands, but to intent. You must focus not only on what you do, but why you do it." Ethan nodded. "Intent? Okay. I think I can try." Hours passed as they worked together. Ethan learned to anticipate the ship's reactions, guiding Lyra through maneuvers she had never attempted alone. He discovered that human problem-solving had a flexibility that even her advanced AI sometimes could not match. When the storm finally subsided, both were exhausted, but a bond had begun to form. Lyra looked at Ethan with something beyond curiosity, perhaps respect, perhaps gratitude. Ethan felt a strange warmth toward her, a connection he couldn't explain. "You did well," she said softly. "I did not expect a human to be so capable." Ethan smiled, brushing a hand through his hair. "Guess I just know how to keep my ship from crashing." Lyra's eyes sparkled faintly. "There may be more than one reason why the universe brought you here, Ethan Cole." For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, and inside, two beings from entirely different worlds shared a rare moment of understanding. They were trapped on this ship together, yes, but for the first time, neither felt completely alone. Little did they know, this was only the beginning. The ship's journey through uncharted space would challenge them physically, mentally, and emotionally. And as they faced dangers ahead, the bond forming between them would become both a source of strength and a test of their will. Ethan realized that being trapped with Princess Lyra was not just a situation to survive. It was an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and perhaps to discover something neither of them had expected, a connection that transcended the stars themselves. The night wore on. The ship glided silently through space, carrying its unlikely pair into the unknown. Ethan looked at Lyra, studying her face illuminated by the soft glow of the consoles. She returned his gaze, her expression unreadable but not unfriendly. For now they were prisoners of circumstance, but somewhere deep inside both felt a spark of hope. A hope that, together, they could not only survive but thrive, even in the vast emptiness of space. And so, the Starling and its alien captor moved forward, bound by fate, curiosity, and the first fragile threads of trust that had begun to weave between human and princess. The first night aboard the alien ship had passed quietly, but for Ethan Cole, sleep was fleeting. He lay on the soft, glowing surface that served as a human bed, staring at the ceiling where patterns of light shifted slowly, almost like breathing. The ship itself felt alive. Every subtle vibration, every hum of energy, made him feel both uneasy and strangely connected. He wondered how a human could ever feel at home here, and yet somehow he did. Princess Lyra, on the other hand, had moved silently through the corridors. She observed the ship's systems with the precision of a trained commander, adjusting energy flows and stabilizing circuits that Ethan could not even begin to understand. Despite her poise, she could not hide the faint curiosity she felt toward him. Humans were unpredictable, she had learned in the short hours she had spent with Ethan. But unpredictability sometimes carried brilliance, a quality she rarely saw outside Zypheran elites. Morning, or what the ship's artificial intelligence counted as day, arrived in muted tones of blue and silver. Ethan rubbed his eyes and stretched. Lyra was already there, waiting by a panel that glowed with alien symbols. "Human," she said without turning. "If you are to survive here, you must learn quickly. The ship responds to your decisions as much as my commands. Watch closely." Ethan approached, careful not to touch anything. "Okay," he said. "I'll try, but you'll have to speak in a way I can understand." Lyra turned toward him, a faint smile touching her lips. "I will adapt my teaching, but you must also adapt your mind. Your instincts are useful. I have observed your methods and they are not always logical yet effective." Ethan laughed softly. "I'll take that as a compliment." The first task she gave him was simple by Zyphoran standards: calibrate the navigation system to avoid a cluster of rogue asteroids approaching their path. Ethan studied the holographic display. Lines of glowing data shifted constantly, reflecting movements he could barely interpret. "You are overcomplicating," Lyra said, leaning closer. "Do not think in lines. Think in flow, feel the ship's movement, anticipate the obstacles." Ethan closed his eyes briefly, imagining the ship as an extension of himself, rather than a machine. Slowly, he began to understand. When he moved a control lever, the ship responded intuitively, gliding through the asteroid cluster with smooth precision. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, a spark of admiration showing through her composed exterior. "Impressive," she said. "Perhaps humans are not entirely primitive." Ethan smiled, his confidence growing. "Maybe not, but I have to say, your ship isn't exactly easy to read." Lyra allowed herself a small laugh. It was a sound Ethan found comforting, like sunlight in a dark room. "You are learning faster than I anticipated. Perhaps we will survive this journey after all." For the next few hours, they worked side by side. Ethan learned how to manipulate energy flows to stabilize shields, how to communicate with the ship's AI, and how to anticipate malfunctions before they happened. In return, Lyra began to ask him questions about Earth, about humans, about why he had chosen a life among the stars. "My people see humans as unpredictable," she said quietly one moment as they rested near a soft, glowing wall. "We know little of your strengths or weaknesses, yet you act with courage even when fear is present." Ethan thought about that. Maybe that's the thing about humans. We don't always have the perfect answer, but we try anyway. Fear doesn't stop us, it sometimes makes us smarter. Lyra regarded him thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is why you survive where others would fail." The bond between them grew slowly, built on shared work and quiet conversation. Ethan discovered that Lyra, despite her royal status, carried a heavy burden. Political threats, expectations of her people, and the weight of being a symbol of her world rested on her shoulders. Yet in the confined space of this ship, away from court and duty, she allowed herself to show moments of vulnerability. "You trust me?" Ethan asked one evening as they adjusted the ship's energy grids together. Lyra hesitated. "I trust your instincts, but not completely. Trust must be earned. Still, you have proven yourself useful and your actions suggest loyalty." Ethan nodded. "I guess that's all anyone can ask for in space, right?" Lyra's gaze softened. "Yes, perhaps for now it is enough." The ship continued to glide through uncharted space, but danger was never far away. One day, while Ethan and Lyra were monitoring the sensors, the alarms blared. A fleet of marauders, small but heavily armed, approached from the far side of a nearby asteroid belt. Their intentions were clear. They wanted the princess. "Human," Lyra said, her voice firm and commanding. "We have intruders. They will not hesitate to take control of this ship. You must assist me." Ethan didn't hesitate. He had spent enough time learning the ship's systems to anticipate its weaknesses. Working together, they rerouted power to the shields, armed defensive drones, and activated energy pulses that disrupted the Marauders' sensors. Ethan's quick thinking and human intuition surprised Lyra. Even her advanced technology had limitations that only an unpredictable mind could overcome. "Your tactics are unorthodox," Lyra said, glancing at him as they watched the intruders retreat. "Yet effective." "You saved us," Ethan grinned. "That's what humans do. We think outside the box, sometimes without even knowing it." For a brief moment, the tension faded. They shared a quiet laugh, an acknowledgement that they had succeeded together. It was a small victory, but it strengthened the trust between them. Ethan began to see Lyra not just as an alien royalty or a prisoner of circumstance, but as a person with hopes, fears, and a sense of humor that matched his own in surprising ways. As the hours passed, they continued to explore the ship. Ethan discovered small quirks in the technology, panels that responded to subtle gestures, corridors that shifted to guide travelers, and energy conduits that hummed with a life of their own. Lyra explained some of the systems, though much remained a mystery. "You adapt quickly," she remarked. "It is rare for humans to understand the flow of Zephyrin technology so rapidly. You may survive where others fail." Ethan felt a mix of pride and humility. "I don't know if I'd call it surviving, maybe learning to keep up." Lyra smiled faintly, a gesture that seemed almost human. "Perhaps. But sometimes keeping up is all that matters." As they settled for the evening, the ship gliding silently through the void, Ethan reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. Just hours ago, he had been a simple cargo pilot, lost and uncertain. Now he was part of a partnership that required trust, courage, and cooperation across worlds. He looked at Lyra, seated nearby, her eyes focused on a holographic star map, and realized that survival was no longer just about avoiding danger. It was about connection, understanding and learning from someone so different, and yet so much the same. "Lyra," he said softly, "I never thought I'd meet someone like you, or be on a ship like this, but I'm glad I am." Lyra's gaze met his, and for a moment the weight of her royal duties seemed to lift. "As am I, Ethan Cole. Perhaps the universe brings us together in ways we do not yet understand." Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. Inside, a human and an alien princess shared a moment of understanding and trust. It was fragile, delicate, and new, but it was a start. And in the vast, unpredictable expanse of space, trust was the most valuable thing of all. For Ethan and Lyra, the journey had just begun. The ship, their prison and sanctuary, would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. And yet, with every shared challenge and every small victory, their bond grew stronger. They were learning to survive together, and perhaps, in the process, they were learning something even more profound. That connection, understanding, and trust could transcend even the vastness of the stars. The days aboard the alien ship had settled into a strange rhythm, but calm was a fragile illusion in space. Ethan Cole and Princess Lyra had grown accustomed to each other's presence. Their trust had deepened, and with every task, Ethan's confidence in handling the ship's alien systems grew. Yet both knew that the quiet would not last. The universe had a way of testing even the strongest bonds. It started with a low hum vibrating through the corridors, a sound that neither Ethan nor Lyra had noticed before. The ship's AI flashed warnings across panels. Systems were failing. At first it was minor, a flicker here, a misalignment there. But the problems grew faster than either of them anticipated. "Human," Lyra said, her voice steady but urgent. "It appears our navigation systems have been tampered with. Someone, perhaps the Marauders, has left a trace within our ship." Ethan's stomach sank. "Tampered? But we locked everything down after the last attack." Lyra shook her head. "Their methods are advanced. They exploit weaknesses in ways even our AI could not predict." Ethan took a deep breath. He had always thrived in danger, but this was different. This was not a simple asteroid storm or a failed engine. This was sabotage, and the ship itself seemed alive and unpredictable. "So, what do we do?" he asked. Lyra glanced at him, a mixture of trust and caution in her gaze. "We venture into the heart of the ship. You will follow my lead." The corridors seemed to twist as they moved deeper, shifting in response to their presence. Ethan noticed subtle changes. The walls pulsed with energy, and the floor beneath his feet felt almost organic. The farther they went, the more he realized that this ship was not merely a vessel. It was a living entity, attuned to those aboard it. At one point, a panel sparked violently, sending a surge of energy across the hallway. Ethan jumped back, narrowly avoiding the blast. Lyra moved closer, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "Do not fear," she said. "The ship reacts to our fear. Focus, calm your mind, and the path will open." Ethan nodded, forcing himself to remain calm. He followed her guidance, and slowly, the flickering panels began to stabilize. He marveled at the bond forming between them, the way she trusted him to act and the way he trusted her to guide him. Hours passed as they navigated the labyrinthine passages. They encountered more signs of sabotage, a misaligned energy conduit, doors that refused to open, and a strange residue that pulsed with alien energy. Each obstacle demanded cooperation, patience, and quick thinking. During one particularly tense moment, Lyra slipped on a slick surface. Ethan grabbed her arm just in time, pulling her to safety. Their eyes met, and for a brief instant, the professional distance between them dissolved. Neither spoke, but both felt the unspoken acknowledgement of trust and dependence. Finally, they reached the core of the ship, a room filled with glowing crystals and pulsing energy nodes. The sabotage was concentrated here. Ethan studied the patterns, tracing the disruptions with his hands, feeling the flow of energy as if it were a river. "Your method is unconventional," Lyra said, watching him work, "yet effective. You sense the flow rather than calculate it." Ethan smiled faintly. "I guess humans are good at improvising. When you don't have all the answers, you make some up and hope it works." Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. "Improvisation. A quality I have not seen in many humans. You may have saved us." As they worked side by side, the ship suddenly shuddered violently. Alarms blared. Ethan realized the Marauders had found a way inside, following the ship's energy signature. They were approaching the core. Human, prepare yourself, Lyra commanded. We must defend this room at all costs. If they take the core, the ship, and we are lost. Ethan's heart raced, but he did not falter. He activated defensive drones, rerouted power to energy barriers, and took positions behind the crystal structures. Lyra's fingers danced across holographic controls, directing energy flows with precision. Together they became a single unit, human intuition and alien precision moving in perfect synchronization. The first wave of attackers arrived. They were swift, mechanical, and relentless. Ethan dodged a strike, sending a pulse of energy that knocked several marauders off balance. Lyra's shields flared, repelling another group. Each time they moved, they anticipated the other's actions, their trust now absolute. During a critical moment, a marauder managed to break through one of the shields, aiming directly at Lyra. Ethan lunged, tackling it out of the way. The impact sent both of them sprawling across the floor. For a heartbeat, Ethan's mind froze, not from fear, but from the realization of how much he cared for her. Lyra regained her stance quickly, her eyes meeting his. "Are you injured?" she asked. "I'm fine," Ethan said, brushing himself off. "But I might have gotten a little closer than I should have." Lyra's gaze softened, a warmth in her expression that she rarely allowed herself to show. "Your actions speak louder than words, Ethan Cole." The battle raged on, but they held their ground. Together, they outmaneuvered the marauders using a combination of energy pulses, traps, and calculated maneuvers. Finally, the last attacker was repelled, retreating into the void of space. The core was safe, for now. Breathing heavily, Ethan and Lyra surveyed the room. The crystals glowed steadily, the energy nodes pulsed calmly, and the ship's hum returned to its normal rhythm. They had survived, not just because of skill, but because of the bond that had formed between them. "You fought well," Lyra said softly, her voice carrying a note of admiration. "You saved us both." Ethan shrugged, still catching his breath. "We saved each other. I wouldn't have made it without you." Lyra nodded, and for a moment silence filled the room. It was a comfortable silence, one that spoke of shared experience and mutual respect. Neither had to say more. The understanding was unspoken but undeniable. As the ship continued its journey, Ethan realized that his feelings for Lyra were growing beyond admiration. He was drawn to her courage, her intelligence, and the way she had allowed him into her world. Lyra, too, felt an unfamiliar warmth in his presence, a connection that went beyond duty or circumstance. The events of the day left them both exhausted, but they knew the universe had more challenges in store. Space was vast, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. Marauders were only the beginning. Cosmic storms, mechanical failures, and unknown threats waited ahead. Yet Ethan felt a growing confidence. He had learned that survival was not just about skill, it was about trust, adaptability, and courage. And with Lyra by his side, he knew they could face whatever came next. That night, as they rested near the heart of the ship, Ethan watched Lyra adjust the energy flows of the core. The glow reflected in her eyes, and he thought about how different she was from anyone he had ever met. Royalty, alien and yet so human in her fears, hopes, and determination. "You know," he said quietly, "I never thought I'd be fighting off attackers in some alien ship with a princess, but I'm glad I am." Lyra glanced at him, a faint smile on her lips. "As am I, Ethan Cole. Perhaps the universe has a sense of humor, placing us in situations that challenge and teach us." Ethan chuckled softly. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just testing if we can survive together." Lyra's eyes met his, and for a moment the weight of their circumstances felt lighter. They were no longer merely human and alien, prisoner and princess. They were partners, allies, and something more fragile but infinitely stronger. Companions who could face the darkness together. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, indifferent to their struggles. Inside, a human and an alien princess had found trust, courage, and a bond that neither could ignore. The journey was far from over, and the dangers ahead would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. But for the first time, both felt certain of one thing. Together, they could face whatever the universe threw at them, and so, in the heart of a living ship, amid cosmic uncertainty and lingering danger, Ethan Cole and Princess Lyra discovered the truth of partnership, courage, and trust. The universe was vast, but for the first time they did not feel alone. The ship drifted through the darkness of space, silent and gleaming, yet tension simmered in every corridor. Ethan Cole and Princess Lyra had faced danger before, marauders, sabotage, and mysterious failures, but nothing could prepare them for what awaited. Sensors began flashing, a violent storm forming ahead in a sector of space neither of them had ever seen. The ship's AI sent continuous warnings, yet there was no way to avoid it. The storm was enormous, swirling with charged particles, powerful winds, and gravitational anomalies. Lyra studied the readouts, her expression tense. "Human, this storm is unlike anything we have encountered. It is unpredictable, violent, and capable of damaging the ship beyond repair." Ethan frowned. "So, we go through it or get stuck out here?" She shook her head. "Going around is impossible. The storm covers a vast area. We must navigate through it using every skill we possess. Your intuition will be critical." Ethan swallowed. He had relied on instinct before, but this time, instinct alone might not be enough. Yet he felt a strange confidence. Lyra trusted him and he trusted her. Together they could face almost anything. The ship entered the storm with a low hum that resonated in their chests. Flashes of colored light danced across the hull, and the energy grids fluctuated wildly. Ethan and Lyra immediately went to the control deck side by side. "Focus on the flow of energy," Lyra instructed. "Do not fight it. Work with it." Ethan took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment. He imagined the ship as an extension of himself, feeling its pulse, anticipating its movement. Slowly he began guiding the controls in ways he had never learned. They were not standard maneuvers, but ones born of instinct and adaptability. Lyra followed his lead, adjusting the alien systems to stabilize the ship as best she could. The storm raged on. Debris collided with the hull. Energy surges disrupted power and corridors lit up with sparks. Yet amidst the chaos, Ethan and Lyra worked in harmony. Each action, each command complemented the other. For the first time, Ethan felt a true connection to someone outside his species. Not just working together, but thinking together. At one critical moment, the ship was caught in a gravitational wave that threatened to rip the vessel apart. Alarms blared and the energy shields flickered dangerously. Ethan made a split-second decision, redirecting power from the engines to reinforce the shields. Lyra followed without hesitation, recalibrating the navigation nodes to counter the pull of the storm. The maneuver worked, but not without cost. A surge of energy knocked Ethan to the floor, sending sparks flying. Lyra rushed to his side, her hand steadying him. "Are you hurt?" she asked, concern etched in her voice. Ethan groaned but managed a weak smile. "I'm fine, just got a little too close to the action." Lyra's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability showing through her composed exterior. "You risk yourself too easily, Ethan Cole, but it is that courage that keeps us alive." He looked at her, admiration and something deeper stirring in his chest. "We're alive, together. That's what matters." The storm was relentless. Lightning-like energy bolts streaked across the ship's path, and the vessel shuddered under the pressure. Ethan and Lyra had to make split-second decisions, trusting each other implicitly. Every mistake could be fatal, yet neither faltered. During one particularly dangerous moment, a power conduit exploded, sending a wave of energy toward Lyra. Without thinking, Ethan lunged, pushing her out of harm's way. They fell together onto the floor, the sparks settling around them like glowing rain. Breathing heavily, they looked at each other, and for a heartbeat, words were unnecessary. The bond between them had grown stronger, forged in the fire of danger. "You saved me," Lyra said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "And you saved me too," Ethan replied. "We're a good team." Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. "More than a good team, human. Perhaps something more." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Despite the chaos around them, despite the storm threatening to tear the ship apart, they had found a connection that neither could ignore. Hours passed, each more intense than the last. The ship groaned under pressure, energy systems fluctuated, and debris battered the hull. Yet Ethan and Lyra adapted, improvising with every surge and flash of the storm. Ethan's human ingenuity complemented Lyra's precise knowledge of Zyphran technology. Together, they navigated the ship through the storm's heart, turning potential disaster into survival. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the storm began to subside. The ship emerged battered but intact, its systems slowly stabilizing. Ethan slumped into a chair, exhausted, but a sense of triumph coursed through him. Lyra approached, her expression a mixture of relief and pride. "We have survived, together," Ethan managed a tired smile. Yeah, together. I couldn't have done it without you. For a moment, the tension melted away. They sat in silence, listening to the gentle hum of the ship as it returned to normal. Outside, the stars were calm again, indifferent to the ordeal they had just faced. But inside, two beings from different worlds had shared something extraordinary: trust, courage, and an unspoken bond that had been tested and proven under fire. You're brave, Ethan Cole, Lyra said quietly, her gaze meeting his. Not many humans would face such a storm with such resolve. And you're amazing, Lyra, Ethan replied. I've never met anyone who could handle a ship like this under so much pressure, and keep their cool while doing it. Lyra allowed herself a small laugh, the sound like music in the quiet control deck. Perhaps we make a good team. More than I expected. Ethan nodded, feeling the truth in her words. Yeah, more than I expected too. As the night, or the artificial night aboard the ship, settled, they finally rested near the control deck. Ethan looked at Lyra, watching the way the soft glow of the consoles reflected in her eyes. She was more than a princess, more than an alien. She was a companion, someone who had become a part of his journey, and he realized his life in ways he had never anticipated. Lyra, too, felt the shift within herself. She had faced countless dangers, political intrigue, and threats to her world, yet nothing had been as challenging or as rewarding as sharing this journey with a human. Ethan's courage, adaptability, and kindness had touched her in ways she could not fully explain. For the first time, both understood that survival was not just about skill or technology. It was about trust, connection, and the willingness to rely on someone else. And in the heart of the storm, they had found that in each other. The ship drifted silently through space, its systems stabilizing, and the storm fading into the distance. Ethan and Lyra sat side by side, exhausted but alive, the bond between them stronger than ever. They had faced the universe's fury together, and in doing so, had discovered something more powerful than fear or danger, a connection that transcended species, worlds, and circumstance. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, indifferent to their trials. Inside, a human and an alien princess had found trust, courage, and the beginnings of something deeper. The universe would continue to challenge them, but they knew one truth above all else. Together, they could face anything. And so, in the calm after the storm, Ethan and Lyra allowed themselves a rare moment of peace. They had survived the heart of chaos, and in doing so, had discovered that connection, trust, understanding, and courage could shine brighter than any storm in the cosmos. The storm had passed, but the dangers of space did not end with the fading turbulence. Ethan Cole and Princess Lyra knew that survival required vigilance. The ship's systems were stable for the first time in days, yet sensors still detected distant marauder vessels closing in. They were not finished with their trials, and escape would demand every ounce of skill, courage, and trust they had cultivated. Lyra studied the holographic maps, her fingers tracing routes and trajectories. We cannot return to known space. The marauders will be waiting there. We must find a new path, one they cannot predict. Ethan leaned over the controls, his mind sharp despite exhaustion. I have an idea, he said. If we use the ship's cloaking field and navigate through the gravity wells of nearby asteroids, we might be able to slip past them unnoticed. Lyra considered this, impressed by the human's intuition. It is risky. The asteroid's gravitational pull could damage the ship if miscalculated. Yet your plan may be our only chance. Together, they set the course. Ethan directed the ship, feeling the subtle currents of energy, while Lyra adjusted the shields and navigation systems. Every movement was a delicate balance between precision and instinct. The ship responded to their teamwork, almost as if it understood their need to survive. As they entered the dense asteroid field, the cloaking field activated, rendering the ship nearly invisible to the marauders' sensors. Rocks and debris surrounded them, each collision threatening to compromise the hull. Ethan guided the ship through tight spaces with steady hands, while Lyra managed the energy shields to absorb impacts. Human, steady, Lyra shouted as a massive rock shifted dangerously close. I've got it, Ethan replied, narrowly maneuvering the ship around the obstacle. They worked seamlessly, each action building on the other. The marauders, unaware of their precise location, searched futilely, their frustration growing with every failed attempt. Ethan and Lyra shared a glance, a silent acknowledgement that their bond had become more than necessity. It was now trust, instinct and understanding forged through shared danger. Finally, after hours of tense navigation, they emerged from the asteroid field, safe for the moment. The marauders were left behind, unable to predict their movements. Ethan exhaled, leaning back in his chair. "We made it." Lyra smiled, the first genuine, relaxed smile in days. "Yes, we did. You have proven yourself invaluable, Ethan Cole." He chuckled softly. "And you've taught me more than I ever expected. About your ship, your people, and maybe even about courage." Lyra regarded him with warmth. "Perhaps we have taught each other." The victory, however, was bittersweet. They were still far from home, and the universe stretched before them with countless unknowns. Yet for the first time, both felt hope rather than fear. They had faced the storm, repelled marauders, and navigated alien technology together. Their bond had become unbreakable, a partnership that transcended the boundaries of their worlds. As the ship drifted through the calm expanse of space, Lyra turned to Ethan. "Human, I must ask, what will you do when we reach safe space? Will you return to your world or stay with me?" Ethan considered this, his mind replaying the journey they had shared. "I don't know what the future holds," he said honestly, "but I know that I don't want to be alone out here. And I don't want you to face this universe without someone you can trust." Lyra's eyes softened, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps we can face it together, not as human and princess, but as companions, equals, partners in navigating the unknown." Ethan smiled, the weight of their shared journey settling comfortably around him. "Then let's do it. Together." With a shared nod, they set a course for unexplored space, choosing to journey side by side rather than returning to known safety. Every decision they made now was a choice for survival, exploration, and companionship. Their bond was no longer defined solely by necessity, it was defined by choice. Days passed as they traveled. Ethan continued to learn the intricacies of the Zephyrin ship, discovering systems that even Lyra had not explored. He adapted human creativity to alien technology, often finding solutions where logic alone failed. Lyra, in turn, taught him about her people, their history, and their hopes for a future free from fear. In quiet moments, they shared stories of their pasts, their dreams, and their fears. Ethan spoke of Earth, its vast oceans, endless skies, and the simple joy of human connection. Lyra shared tales of Zyphora, of cities that shimmered with energy and the responsibilities she bore as a princess. Through these exchanges, they discovered a shared humanity, despite their different worlds, a recognition that courage, hope, and loyalty were universal. One evening, as they rested near the observation deck, Ethan looked out at the stars stretching endlessly before them. "You know," he said, "I used to think space was lonely, dangerous, empty, but now it feels like anything is possible." Lyra joined him, her hand brushing his briefly. "The universe is vast, but not so lonely when shared with someone who understands. We have faced it together and emerged stronger." Ethan turned to her, admiration shining in his eyes. "I don't just admire you for your skill or bravery. I admire you for everything you are. And I'm grateful that I get to face all of this with you." Lyra's lips curved into a gentle smile. "And I am grateful for your presence, Ethan, for your courage, your intuition, and your heart." The ship moved steadily through the void, carrying its unlikely pair toward new horizons. Marauders, storms, and sabotage had tested them, but each challenge had strengthened their connection. They were no longer simply pilot and princess. They were companions, partners, and equals in a vast, mysterious universe. Eventually, they approached a sector uncharted by either humans or Zyphorans. Ethan took the helm, feeling the ship's pulse as he guided them through the untested paths. Lyra adjusted the energy systems, ensuring stability even as the unknown threatened to overwhelm them. Together, they explored, learning and adapting with every moment. "This is just the beginning," Lyra said, gazing at the stars. "The universe is vast, full of wonders and dangers, and we will face it, together." Ethan nodded, a sense of exhilaration and peace settling over him. "Together. Whatever comes next, we face it side by side." And so the ship glided onward, a beacon of hope in the endless darkness of space. Ethan and Lyra had faced the impossible, discovered trust and courage, and forged a bond that transcended species and worlds. Their journey was far from over, but they faced it with hearts united, ready for whatever the cosmos could throw at them. In the vast, uncharted reaches of the universe, a human and an alien princess had discovered the true power of partnership, trust, and companionship. They had learned that survival was not merely about skill or courage, it was about connection. And as they ventured toward new horizons, one truth remained clear. Together, they could conquer any storm, navigate any danger, and explore the limitless possibilities of space. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and for the first time, both Ethan and Lyra felt something rare and profound: hope, trust, and the quiet joy of knowing that they were no longer alone. Together they would explore, survive and thrive, bound not by circumstance, but by choice, courage, and the bond that had grown stronger with every challenge. And so, in the silence of the cosmos, a human and an alien princess sailed onward, not as captor and captive, nor as alien and human, but as companions, partners and friends ready to face the universe side by side.